Thursday. What we're going to be talking about is not the same thing we've been talking about all semester. If you recall, you probably don't, but if you recall from the very, very beginning of the course, when we defined what criminology is, I don't think I like to Ed Sutherland, the differential association guy, the thought defines criminology as the study of the making of laws, the breaking of laws, and society's reaction to the breaking of law. That's what he defines criminology as, the study of those three. Okay. So what we talked about almost exclusively in this course, a little bit last time on Thursday last week, and Tuesday last week too. We've mostly been talking about the breakers. We've mostly been talking about that second component of the definition of but there's more to it. And what we're going to be talking about today and Thursday is the third component, the third portion of Salim's definition that's going on by the action of the breaker. And there's a lot there that we can talk. And when I teach this intro CJ in person, which I have we talk way more about society's reaction to the breaking law than for like the purpose of that course, right? But we're going to get a little bit into it by emphasizing some theoretical issues, theories of punishment, not theories of crime. It's kind of right? I don't really be talking about theories of punishment. Moral violations is kind of a theory of punishment, but it's also a theory of crime. It's a theory of law. But what we've probably been talking about are theories of punishment. We've been mostly emphasizing almost exclusively theories of crime. So when we think about punishment, punishment is fitting into a really broad, I think, concept that's useful to understand. This concept that you see in the literature in criminology a lot is called punitiveness. Punitiveness. And punitiveness can be measured and understood as a concept. Talk about concepts at the very beginning, or like conceptualizing, identifying, defining terms, all that. So punitiveness is just one concept, like crime, like delinquency, like low self-control. It's just another concept, and it means all different kinds of things. It's one way that we can measure punitiveness is by asking people about their own sentiments, perspectives, and attitudes about the phenomenon of punishment. And so this is from a survey that is distributed in not every country in America, but almost every country. They've been expanding it over time. And this is by University perspective. And I published a few research studies using it. They have this question. They have this question, which is really small type. But it is, in your opinion, what should be done to reduce crime in a country like ours? They have two options, actually. Two options are to implement preventative measures and then increase the punishment. People who say increase the punishment, that's punitive. Sort of other generic, I think, clear that. They want to increase punishment. Those who prefer punishment over there's people who indicate who want to increase punishment for doing crime. That's a better opinion, right? That's like a lot of concepts, it's multi-dimensional and a lot of things go into it. You probably need way more questions than just one to get at it in a more sort of complex, nuanced way, okay? But it's a rough proxy. Punitive. I want more punishment. And you can ask this across the board. You can ask this up and down North and South America. You can ask people what they think we should be done to address crime in a country like ours. So now what we're interested in doing, now that we have a measure punitiveness, this new concept, not crime, it's the response to crime, society's response to crime. So now we want to explain that variation. Now we want to basically predict or explain why some people are in this category, but not this category. So this was me, maybe, about 8 years ago. That sounds right. 7 years ago. I was interested in this question using these tools. So being in this increased time. People who don't want to live next to foreign people, black Now, for the numbers, one, talking about differences in percentages of like, I don't know, between 8 and 10% which isn't all, but it doesn't seem all. But in terms of how do you like follow politically, but airplane you do, I don't know about it, but small differences in people's attitudes that are measurable and isolated are really important. So even though they don't look like all that much, 10 percentage points have a couple of things about all that's and really the work people is saying people who don't want foreign people, black people, and indigenous people have made. To be clear, this type of question was not asked in the United States. This is actually the study that I used, actually two studies. It was only a study of Latin America because basically nobody in the US is going to respond that they don't want a minority person nobody is going to, even if they believe that, most people, like vast majority of people, are not going to say it. They're not only going to do. If you're going to get quite a bit of variation, like 10% of the people, yes, are going to say, no, I don't want foreign person, and then you're going to estimate, no, I don't want foreign person. So we have more variation in Latin America. It's kind of a measure of kind of explicit kind of racial, all like animus, racial resentment, racial animus, something along. This points us to a relationship. This is indicative. We're trying to explain a phenomenon. What explains the phenomenon of punitiveness in general? So let's try to sort of imply here. Punitiveness is a general term. It includes many different kinds of things. But in general, it relates to the harshness of punishment. Whether that punishment is actual or desired or anticipated or expected, it doesn't necessarily matter. It all is rolled into the same concept. There's either more punishment or the individuals involved want there to be more punishment. It could be actual or desired imposition of punishment. So how can you understand punitiveness? What is the unit of analysis? Punitive. Well, most of the things like crime, all the kinds of social. It can be anything. It can be anything. The unit of analysis can be any sort of level of aggregation, at any social level. You can have a society that is more punitive than another society, a country that is more punitive than another country. So a society, for example, that inflicts the death penalty, or which has more people under direct supervision, that would be a more punitive country or a more punitive society. You can have a court or a court district where a judicial circuit perhaps, where you have the assignment of punishment options. And maybe that court assigns more prison sentences than it does probation sentences. That's a more punitive court than one that assigns fewer prison sentences relative to, say, probation sentence. That's a more punitive sentence. To be clear, so says the academics, the ivory tower types like me, who are writing in our air conditioned offices. Like, yes, a sentence to prison is going to be more punitive and harsher than a sentence to probation. What's kind of interesting about this is if you ask people who've been under correctional supervision, you ask them what they think, they don't necessarily agree. It's kind of wild to think about. For some people, they'd rather go to prison than go to probation because probation, I don't know if you're aware of this, is very stressful because you constantly have to be aware of like what you're doing and what is going on. You're under supervision, and there's a kind of stress and anxiety associated with being under supervision. Under a prison sentence, you get in, you do the thing that you're supposed to do in the prison, and you get, and you know when you're supposed to get out. There's always this fear of probation revocation when you're on probation. But actually, what's even worse for individual offenders can be local jail. You can get sentenced to county jail for a felony. And I think most of You get a jail sentence. Prisons, I don't know if you're aware, tend in general to have more stuff. They tend to have more funding, they tend to have more cramming, more skills, more all different kinds of things, where local jails tend to have nothing, right? So we in the ivory tower types were like, well, probation seems to be the least punitive, and then jail maybe in the middle somewhere, and then prison is obviously the most punitive. But like people who experience these sanctions themselves who actually totally redo the order. Like jail's the worst, and then maybe probation, and then prison maybe is the least. Not least because prison sentence can be shorter than probation. So anyway, that's all in the back of our mind, right? But in general, we're going to pretend right now and say that, well, a criminal court that assigns more prison sentences than probation sentences is a more punitive form. Schools can be punitive. I'm really interested in this one. Schools can be punitive. Since Columbine in particular, but a little bit, we saw an expansion in punitive responses to influenced behavior, specifically out-of-court suspension and expulsion. Those are punitive responses, often contrasted to medicalized responses to influenced behavior, which can involve all different kinds of things, including putting kids on Adderall. And then you have some people who are more punitive than others. There's some people who are more likely to indicate they support increases in punishment to deal with the crime problem, for example. So some people are more punitive in their sentence. There's variation in this room, almost certainly. In terms of support for capital punishment, support for sex offender registry, support for transfer of juvenile offenders to the adult court. There's all different kinds of ways that we can assess punitiveness at the individual level also. This now is a variable that we can measure all these types of units of analysis. And so most of the research and theory that we talk about in this part has again focused on the phenomenon of percentages. But we can also measure punitiveness. We can also study punishment, the desired punishment. It's not a variable. It's not a thing or not a thing. There's more or less punishment. There's gradations of punishment. When we think of the punishment and punitiveness, we're typically situating it into this bigger concept called social control, situating it in the context of a bigger concept called social control. So social control, if we're going to try to define what that means, which is again a much bigger concept, social control is basically the rewarding of some behavior and punishment. Rewarding some behavior and punishment. So punishment is a type of social control, but all of the other types of social control. We can get into it. Always are a type of social control. They encourage you to walk away, not on the grass. I mean, there's all different types of social control. That's one example. There's all different types of social control. But we have theories of social control that relate specifically to things like punishment. They tend to emphasize the purposes and function of punishment beyond deterrence, incapacitation, and rehabilitation. What if punishment in social control better? What if punishment does things beyond deter, incapacitate, and rehabilitate? What if it does more than? What if punishment can achieve social goals that have nothing to do? What if punishment does things beyond that? There's all different kinds of examples of that. A really famous classic example of this would be like the Salem witch trial. The Salem witch trials were not about crime. The Salem witch trials were not about crime. There's other things that punishment does that it's reflective of, and it can be used as a means of accomplishing things. And they can be bigger than crime. They can be bigger than deterrence. Crime may be the excuse, but that's not the reason. It's all different kinds of reasons. Maybe punishment brings a community together. Punishment does that. Two accesses. Punishment brings a community together against the common enemy, against threats to the things that we hold sacred. When those are violated, we need to have them feel better. So good. That's what their premise is. Another possibility is that what if we have too many people? We have an excess in